Hey everyone, Mr. MC here. This is guide for round 6 of the Nations Cup 2021 exhibition season. Let's get this started. Bring yourself to the left side of the track and then eventually bring yourself to the right side of the track and then brake before you reach the 3 board that is on the right. Brake hard for a short while, slowly ease off the brakes as you turn in and focus more on getting a good exit, so through this part right here. Nice and easy on the throttle so the car doesn't step out. Bring yourself to the left and use the gravel trap on the left as your braking point. Use around half of your braking power. You can stay on 3rd gear, but you can also quickly go down to 2nd gear for extra rotation, then back up to 3rd gear. Just be nice and careful with your throttle input. Then start to brake just as you reach the 1 board. You can use a tiny bit of braking, but for the most part, you'll be doing throttle control. Eventually, you want to bring yourself towards the right side of the track, brake in between the 3 and the 2 board. Brake hard for a short moment. Nice and easy off of the brakes as you turn in. Nice and easy on the throttle so you don't end up understeering onto the sand. And your next braking point is the 2 board, or the shadow that is popping out on the right. Use a little bit of your braking power. You just want to fine tune the car. Try not to hit the sausage curbs and be very careful here. Try not to go all the way into the green stuff. Otherwise, you risk spinning out and getting dirty tires. For the corkscrew, brake before you reach the 3 board. So you want to brake nice and early for this part. Brake hard for a short moment. Take advantage of the curbs as you make your way into the corkscrew. Get the car aligned so it's pointing towards this empty area on the other side of the track. Do lots of throttle control and you should be landing right on the red and white curbs. Nice and easy on the throttle once again. Do not hit the sausage curbs. Bring yourself towards the left side of the track and brake just before you reach the 2 board. Use around half of your braking power. You just want to make sure that the car can rotate as you slow down. Nice and easy on the throttle once again. Then brake before you reach the 3 board that is on the right, just after the curb on the right starts. Brake hard for a short while. Nice and easy off of the brakes one last time. Let the car do the rotation before you get on the throttle. But that is pretty much it for the lap guide. Let's go ahead and take a look at the strategies. For the qualifying session, you only have 5 minutes to try to get a good qualifying time. So depending where you are on the pit lane and when you get out, you'll have at minimum 2 chances or at most 3 chances to try to get a good qualifying time. And once you're out of the pit stops, you just want to start to push right away because you're on the racing hard tires, so they will take some time to warm up. The tire wear rate is also pretty low. You don't have to worry about it in the qualifying session. So once again, just start to push once you gain control of your car. And for the brake balance of the 2 cars that we'll be using for this race, for the Cayman, I left the brake balance at 0. And for the Corvette, I had the brake balance at +1. And this is just for qualifying. For the race, I had the brake balance setting slightly different. But Substream will also be pretty useful here. It'll be more useful when you're going down the main straight, but then after that, on the shorter quote-unquote straights, it won't be as useful. So you can shave off a couple tenths off of your lap time if you take advantage of the Substream, but just don't forget that you will need to brake just a little earlier because you're going a little faster than usual. And the Slipstream range between yourself and the car in front of you is 3/4 of a second. So once again, once you gain control of your car, just start to push. Take advantage of the slipstream if you can. Make sure you brake a little earlier if you're under the slipstream, and you'll have 2 to 3 chances to try to get a good qualifying time. For this race, we are doing 15 laps at Laguna Seca, and we're only using 2 Group 4 cars. We're using the Porsche Cayman GT4 and the Chevrolet Corvette C7 Group 4. We'll talk about those 2 cars in a bit, but let me just get through the general race information. This is a grid start, so bring the traction control to 1, and shortly after the race starts, you can then bring it back down to 0 or whatever value you normally have it set to. And both the Corvette and the Cayman have a pretty good start out of the starting line. Fuel is at ×3, which means that fuel will not be a problem, so you don't have to worry about fuel saving. The tire wear is at ×6, and the tire wear can potentially become a problem if you're too careless when it comes to this race, but if you do take a couple of steps, so adjusting your brake balance and driving smoothly, that should mitigate the problem and it should make it more of a small inconvenience than a big problem. Either way, you want to go for a no stop because the pit loss at Laguna Seca is a ridiculous 30 seconds, so you don't want to pit at all. You just want to do a bit of tire saving, and you don't have to do any sort of crazy tire saving like how you may have had to do in the recent manufacturer's race over at South Inner Loop. The most you want to do is just drive smoothly, adjust the brake balance, and that's pretty much it. For both the Cayman and the Corvette, the front tires wear out faster than the rear tires, so for both cars you want to bring the brake balance towards the rear of the car. And also, before I go on, do be careful about clipping the sand because it will mess you up really bad, so you do want to drive as carefully as possible. So as you saw just now, our poor friend who was in first place, he got a bit too much into the sand and ended up spinning out into the pit stop. But anyways, so brake balance for the Cayman, 0 can work, and that's actually the brake balance I had it set to in this race, but +1 and +2 can also work as well, but you do want to be a little careful about how you brake in the Porsche Cayman, because if you're too harsh on the brakes, so you brake at full braking power way too fast, then the car will start to step out on you. So in a moment, I'm going to approach this hairpin and I'm going to do somewhat gradual braking to full braking power. So here we go. There we go. Nice and gradual. Nothing too sudden, and the car is acting just fine. And the Porsche Cayman, it loves being driven smoothly, so as long as you're not being too sudden with your inputs, then the car will be acting just fine. Also, let's talk about the cars. So we have two cars, the Porsche Cayman and the Chevrolet Corvette, and we're going to talk about the Porsche Cayman first because this is pretty much going to be your go-to car. So Laguna Seca is a handling track. The Porsche Cayman is a handling car. So those two, the track and the car, they're going to synergize really well together, and the Cayman is going to have a field day here. It flows through the turns really well, and especially through the corkscrew. As long as you know what you're doing, as long as you're not careless, then the car will just go through the corkscrew just fine. It'll flow through it like water. And especially the last couple of turns, the Cayman has a huge advantage over the Corvette. It handles these turns so well, it flies through these turns, whereas the Corvette, it is really struggling to go through those turns. And because the Cayman goes through these turns a lot better than the Corvette, the Cayman will be able to get much better lap times, much faster lap times. And in this case, I ended up getting a 22 minutes and 21 seconds, compared to the Corvette, where I got a 22 minutes and 29 seconds. Also, I just want to quickly show how the Corvette starts. I had to go around a car that stalled or got a false start penalty, but other than that, the car, it starts fine. Actually, I think it starts a tad bit better than the Cayman, but both cars, once again, both cars do start off the line pretty well. And the Corvette, what do I have to say about the Corvette? It struggles through the turns. Pretty much its main advantage is the main straight, so that's where it's going to be a much faster car than the Cayman, because the Corvette is a power car, and because you're using a power car on a handling track, they're not going to synergize that well, and you're going to see the Corvette start to struggle as soon as you reach the hairpin. You also have to brake a little earlier, because for the Corvette, in the race that is, you want to have the brake balance at +3 or +4, and that's going towards the rear of the car. And you can see me struggle through this part because I was understeering a lot, and I ended up going off track and almost lost control of the car. And in terms of the tower isn't too bad. As long as you have the brake balance a bit further towards the back of the car, then the tire wear will not be too much of an issue. Although, I mean, when the tire wear kicks in, this car will become even more understeery than it already is, which actually makes it a bit more problematic. And in this race, I think I was only able to get a 128 once, whereas with the Cayman, most if not all of my laps were in the 128. So that's going to kind of show how good the Cayman is here versus the Corvette. However, I do have to give props to the Corvette for being nice and stable, so in the corkscrew it has less of a chance of acting funny and trying to spin out. But because the pace in the Corvette is much slower than the Cayman, and because it struggles going through those turns, it's just really understeery, the Cayman is still going to be the better choice to go with. And especially as you go through these turns, once the people in the Cayman find out that you're on a Corvette, you're going to become a huge target and they're going to take full advantage of you. But anyways, let's go ahead and see the places to overtake. So the main straight is pretty much going to be one of the best places, if not the best place to get an overtake done. The slipstream will help out a bit, but if the car got a bad exit out of the final turn, then you can definitely take advantage of them as you come down to the hairpin. Then after that, it's going to be more of a single file line. You don't want to battle for position through these turns because you do risk losing a lot of time. The penalty serving zone is coming up right now before the Mother's Bridge, and this is a potential spot to get an overtake done, especially if you're about to pass someone who is serving a penalty. This upcoming turn, do not go for overtake. Do not go too wide because you risk losing a lot of time or getting into an incident. Now for the corkscrew, this one is very situational. If the car got a really bad exit out of the last turn, you can try to go for an overtake, but it's very risky, especially if you have to pass them as you go through the corkscrew. After that, these next couple of turns, you want to go in a single file line. Don't battle it out unless it's the very last lap. And this final turn is a situational place for an overtake to happen. If it's the very last lap, you can go for the overtake, but if it's not, then I would suggest waiting it out because you have the main straight right in front of you. But anyways, let's go ahead and summarize things up. So this race is going to be much better suited for the Porsche Cayman than the Chevrolet Corvette. So you want to choose the Porsche Cayman. This is a zero stop race, so you do want to make sure that you're keeping an eye out on your tires, because if you're a little too careless, the tire wear will get you pretty bad. And the best ways to take care of your tires in this race is to drive smoothly and to adjust the brake balance. So for the Cayman, you can have it at 0, +1, or +2. Once again, just be nice and smooth with your inputs, especially your braking inputs, because the Cayman will start to act up if you're a little too harsh and too sudden on your inputs. But anyways, that is pretty much it from me. I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. So this is Miss MCA, feeling much better. Thank you all for the kind words, and I'll see you all in the next video.